The fifth round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship was another cracker. It was led in the early stages by Ian Loggy from pole position with Flick Haig going after him. Mark Sansom had a fantastic start, moving the Assetto Bentley from fifth on the grid to third place through the first corner, and he then set off after the race leaders. It was a surprisingly clean start actually, which saw Matt Cowley in the GT4 leading car initially mixing it with some of the GT3s whilst they all tripped over each other behind. The R-Racing Aston Martin was all over Tom Edgar's Toyota, which seemed to be struggling mid-corner through some of the low-speed stuff. In the end, the Aston was passed, though, by the number 65 Porsche, which would be a factor for the win all race long. In GT4, that battling got a little bit too close for comfort on one or two occasions. A bit of contact at the Wilson hairpin, not the last time those two drivers would come to blows. John Ferguson was feeling the pressure from Adam Ballon, and eventually that pressure told, the Mercedes bouncing over the grass at Murray's corner, sending him to the back of the top 10. This was another close moment for Tom Edgar in the Toyota, almost getting taken out by Betty Chen just before the pit window opened. Ian Loggy brought the race-leading and championship-winning car into the pit lane to hand over to Callum McLeod. The Nearys gained lots of ground through the pit stop sequence, actually ending up in fourth position from 8th on the grid, but Sam Neary had to defend from Lewis Williamson for much of his stint. As Marco Signoretti rejoined the circuit in the Academy Mustang, he held on to the GT4 lead, but by the narrowest of margins, whilst it was Johnny Adam who led in GT3 after the number 6 car had to serve its success penalty. Battling aplenty as the GT3 cars were trying to negotiate the GT4s whilst also having their own fights. Some of those fights getting a little bit rough. There was contact between the 76 and 5 McLarens with the 5 car on the grass, and then a lap later Lewis Proctor tangling with Joe Wheeler's Ginetta as he tried to put a lap on it through Rich's corner. Then a definitive moment in the GT4 battle. Contact sent Marco Signoretti off the road, and the 65 Porsche of Seb Hopkins was given a penalty afterwards. Johnny Adam meanwhile had a slow puncture which resulted in him pitting from the lead, and the victory went to the championship leaders. A second win of the year for the number 6 Ram Racing Mercedes of Ian Loggy and Callum McLeod, whilst R-Racing broke the record for the youngest ever winners in the GT4 category, inheriting the win right at the end. Pole position for Ulysse de Pauw was converted into the race lead at the start of our second race here at Snetterton. He had Lewis Williamson alongside him, but Lewis not able to get through into turn 1, where unfortunately Marcus Clutton was fired off the road after three-way contact which involved Johnny Adams' Mercedes. Speaking of three-way contact, it got a bit close for comfort in GT4 as well, with the Assetto Ginetta squeezing the Paddock Motorsport McLaren, and lots more body panels went flying. It was aggressive stuff in that opening stint. The pro drivers as evenly matched as we're used to seeing. Callum McLeod in third place was defending busily from Sandy Mitchell, who tried around the outside of the Wilson hairpin, pulled off a cracking move to get the inside for the left-hander at Palmer's, and finally broke through into a podium position. The first car into the pit lane was the Redline Racing Lamborghini, which was pitted by James Dorlin to try and get out of traffic, and then the floodgates opened as the other pro drivers towards the end of the pit window finally elected to come into the pit. John Ferguson emerged with a 3 or 4 second lead over Adam Ballon in the Lamborghini, but that gap, particularly in the final 15 minutes of the race, started to come down. By half a second or so a lap, Ballon was definitely quicker towards the end of the race. The drama further back involved Stuart Proctor, who had a scary spin at Agostini, was nearly collected by the championship leader Ian Loggy, and then contact between Enduro and 76 sent Mia Fluid out of a top 5 position. She would rejoin towards the back of the pack. Late in the race, it was a change for the lead in GT4. Jack Brown reeled in and then went round the outside of Matt Topham's Aston Martin. Topham held on to third in the end in the class and claimed a Pro-Am victory, but for Jack Brown and Will Burns, it was a first victory of the year together in the GT4 Century Motorsport BMW. Despite a late challenge from Adam Ballon, it was John Ferguson who held on to take his first victory. The same for Ulysse de Pauw.